bad. Earmarking not bad. They talk about a budget crisis in Montgomery. We don't have a budget crisis in Montgomery. We've got a revenue crisis. It's the way we spend our money. And my plan is that we start with that livable wage. We raise it above the poverty line so that people will have hope. We reduce spending by around $200 million, and we can use half of that, and we can expand Medicaid. Expanding Medicaid is good for everybody, businesses and citizens, especially for the 300,000 working Alabamians, families working that don't have access to health care. They can get access to preventive care if we expand Medicaid. Right now, everybody in this room pays 100% of the cost of Medicaid. If we expand Medicaid, the federal government picks up 90%. That makes sense. It's a good idea. We refused Medicaid. We're one of the 19 states back in 2011, 2013. Since that time, we have missed coming into our state between $800 and $900 billion. That's 8 to 9 with a B of federal money that didn't come into Alabama. You wonder why we're broke? And what do we do when we're broke? We cut services. Mental health care is a big one. In Alabama, we decided that mental health care, we'll ignore it and it'll go away. We ignored it. It got bigger and it's manifested itself in our jails at the tune right now of about 170% capacity. And because of that, we're under a federal lawsuit to change that. And if we don't change that, the federal government's going to come in and spend our money, and then we are going to have a crisis. So we expand Medicaid. Medicaid benefits everybody. In Alabama, our insurance rates are about 15% higher because of the situations in emergency rooms. With the expansion of Medicaid, we reduce that because they get preventive care. The important thing is that expanding Medicaid brings in about 15,000 jobs. It will also raise about $240 million a year in state and local sales tax. 51% of our state budget comes from sales tax. We funded our budget. We didn't raise any taxes. We ain't went out hunting new money. We paid people a decent living. We've got economic development. We're talking about 4,000 jobs coming in. I don't know if they're coming or not. How many of those jobs are going to be imported? How many of them do you get? Man, I'll tell you this, you raise that livable wage above the poverty line, and I can guarantee you this, they'll all be good jobs. But without that livable wage, we don't know what they'll pay. Look what Remington did. Remington came down here to Alabama, because Alabama's a good non-union state. They came from New York where they paid $23 an hour. We abated their taxes, bought them a building, give it to them, and they put in the paper they were hiring people to work on the line for $12 an hour. How do you think Remington makes money? Probably the difference in 23 and 12.50. We don't need to sell Alabama labor cheap. And by raising that livable wage above the poverty line, we can ensure that when this economic development comes, we won't be getting jobs that are a drag on our economy. Economic development is about the net profit for us, or the net benefit for us. And by the way, Remington waited 2 years. They brought 1,300 jobs out of the 17 they said they were going to bring, and now they've bankrupted on the building we give them. With $240 million in sales tax, 51% of our budget comes from sales tax we're funding. And the third thing I would like to push to do in Montgomery, and probably the most important, is mental health care reform. Now, I'd like to do it first, but we've already heard here tonight about spending liberals. If I go down there and tell them that we want to reform mental health care, the first thing is we don't have money. I just showed you how. You got the money. When we reform mental health care, this thing that we ignored, that's manifested itself in our jails, we can reduce the population in our jails by as much as a third. Get people out of jail cells and into hospital beds where they should have been in the first place. We talked earlier, someone mentioned earlier that we spend about I think it's $28,000 a year we spend on a prisoner. Half of them are diagnosed as mentally ill. Some of them, as high as $3,000 a month we spend on their medications. So we buy you some anxiety medicine and lock you in a cage. You think they're gonna get better? I don't think so. Like I said, we don't have a budget crisis in Montgomery. We've got a revenue crisis. It's about how we spend our money. If we spend our money wisely, Alabama has the money. And we can do the things that we need to do to make people proud of Alabama. Alabama's always had the reputation of the working poor. I'd like to see Alabama have the reputation of, well, I don't even know what to call it. I'd like to see Alabama have the reputation of people that can make ends meet and live happily and lower some of that socio-economic stress. My name's Mike Smith. I'm running for Alabama Senate District 2. I want you to go to my website. I want you to look at it. I want you to look at my Facebook. I want you to look at the ideas and respond back to me. I'll answer any question I get. And I want to serve you as your senator in Montgomery from Senate District 2. I'll defend the workers of Alabama, and I will defend RSA. Thank you.